Billy Howle. Welcome to An Actor Despairs. How are you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. Yeah, I'm okay. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, it means so much having you here, man. I've been very fortunate. You're episode 151, and
Right.
I've been able to speak to a lot of incredible actors, man. And I say this with every degree of sincerity. There's few actors that do this on a clinical level. Like obviously like Daniel Day-Lewis, Meryl Streep, and I've had some other clinical actors on the show, but you are absolutely one of them, man. What I've seen you do with your work, man. I mean, you are a clinician. If I were carving out text, if I were writing it, just like medicine, I would want to put this in Billy's hands to see what he does with it, because you're a master of your craft. And it's one thing to be a great actor, but to accelerate it to that level is something that so few actors are able to do. And I'm just so amazed at your work, man. And I'm stealing from you, and you're inspiring me, and thank you for your service.
No, well, thank you. That's yeah, I'm over the moon with that. It's a huge compliment. So, yeah, thanks very much.
Of course, man. I mean every word. Sorry if that was overwhelming, but I had
No,
to
no,
say it.
I'm
But
still
dude,
learning how to take praise, so it's
I get it. Yeah, totally, man. I look forward to the day when I got to do the same. But tell me, man. So where did you grow up?
so I was born in Stoke. Actually, it's on this cup. As you
Oh,
can see.
nice.
So
What a
yeah.
great name for a
Um,
town.
yeah. So Stoke-on-Trent is where I was born. So that's where my parents met. Um, and I think roughly around age 2, we moved to Oxfordshire. And my dad took a job at a university there as a junior lecturer in music. So we grew up around Oxfordshire and then moved into sort of Oxford proper in a place called Old Marston. So I grew up there until I was 10 years old. And it was actually, I remember celebrating the millennium in Oxford and it being, this huge deal. And then shortly after that, we moved up to Scarborough, which is on the northeast coast. So yeah, and then we sort of settled there. So my parents still live there, and that became our sort of family home. And then I left there when I was 18,
For the
however
old
long
Vic.
ago that was. No, and so first of all, for a different drama school, for a drama school called East 15
Oh,
Acting School, which is
wow.
in East London.
Well,
Yeah. So my parents. Sorry,
but
go on.
before we even get there, man, talk to me about your childhood. Moving around like that, was that difficult for you? Just kind of like building friends and then having to move again.
Yeah. So I mean, one that really sticks with me, and I've actually recently rekindled this connection with a friend of mine when I was in Oxford, called Freddie, and his father was an actor called John Benfield. He was in like Prime Suspect and all this stuff, and he was one of the sort of main reasons I became interested in acting anyway. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was fascinated by what he did, and he'd always come home with new bits of costume or props or whatever. And so there was a sort of a real sense of magic around what he did for a living. Um, and yeah, so when we moved, I would have been 10 years old, and I feel like 10 is, they are definitely your formative years, and I think it's certainly a very interesting age for a young boy, um, because there's this a lot starts to change around the age of 10, and I had this very close connection with my friend Freddie, whose father was an actor, and then yeah, I was sort of uprooted, and also there was a real sense of sort of, well, it was a massive culture shock too. So we moved up to Scarborough, and in Oxford, we had this sort of very multicultural school, and we had kids from all walks of life and different backgrounds and whatever. And then suddenly I'm in Scarborough, and it was predominantly um, working class white kids.
Yeah.
So that in itself was like difficult for me to make sense of. At that age, I didn't quite understand, why there weren't any people of color in Scarborough,
Yeah,
and,
totally.
and why the attitudes as well to all number of things were sort of wildly different to where they were in Oxford. So yeah, and then of course I turn up in Scarborough with this like quite polished, almost RP voice, I guess, but yeah, Oxford, and I don't know, a little bit more provincial than RP, I guess, but anyway, and so I turn up, and also we were vegetarian, so I was very skinny. And when we arrived in Scarborough, there was nits going around or something. I think I've got three brothers, and one of us had nits. So my dad used to get the clippers out and like shave all our heads. So I turned up at this new school. The other thing to add was there's a three-tier system, as in the education system in Oxford,
Uh-huh.
a bit like America. So you have a
Meaning
sort of
like
high school.
elementary, middle, high school, sort
That's
of.
right,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. And then the rest of the country near enough like has a two-tier system where it's just primary and then secondary,
Wow.
and then you go to college, right? And so it was quite different. So I'd just gone up to middle school when I was in Oxford, and then I felt like I'd been sort of demoted when I got to Scarborough because I was going back to primary school to finish primary school again. And I remember I turned up on the first day, really skinny, pale kid, the vegetarianism, and a shaven head, and the kids actually thought I was really sick, like
Oh
sort
no.
of. Yeah. So so funnily enough, like what I learned very quickly, and I was already starting to find this out anyway, is to sort of to like win favor, if you like, is to clown around, is to fool around. And so because again I had to sort of make new friends and all this stuff, I spent a lot of my time not really paying attention at school, but drawing like fake moustaches on my face and throwing things across the classroom and
Like
whatever else it
trying to
was.
be funny, or just like trying to enjoy yourself, or
Yeah, I think so.
yeah.
I think it was a lot. I was a lot more daunted, and this is a recurring theme with me anyway. I was far more daunted by the whole thing, far more overwhelmed than perhaps I thought I was. I've often like faced things, and I thought, no, I'm completely prepared to do this, and it's okay. We've just moved place, but actually, now in retrospect, I look back and I think, I was a really sensitive kid. That hasn't changed either, and it was a big thing for me to face. To then sort of make new friends.
And
And I don't know,
speaking
I haven't.
of, sorry to interrupt, the RP, because I know in I mean, I got to say, probably in all the world, UK has the most diversity of accents, and each accent can perceive so many subliminal things about someone, and so many assumptions can be made. Was there a target on your back for having that accent?
Um, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say there's a target on my back, but I think I think it was interesting because I think what it taught me was that accents, in a way, although they're sort of we subsume them. Is that the right word? We sort of take them on. We assimilate this voice, and that sort of becomes us. That becomes our voice. And I remember quite early on thinking, I don't speak like everyone else at the school. They've got this quite broad Yorkshire accent, and of course, over time, it will have affected the way I spoke because I was only 10, and the voice does evolve and it does change, more for some and less for other people. But I think I realised perhaps that yes, that the voice was a tool in a way, and that some people who spoke a certain way, I don't know how to say this diplomatically, but like some people who speak in a certain way can be more persuasive than others.
Yeah, I know. Is
So
that, you say no more? I know what you mean.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was kind of interesting, and I thought, hold on, I suppose one of the benefits of having moved around so much and having had all these experiences in these different pockets of the country, was that I got a real good understanding of the difference, and it is sort of wildly different culturally and things like accents and dialect,
And the class
and
system is well, right?
for sure, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's incredible. Talk to me. When what are we talking, like 13 here? Is it about the age we're talking about?
Yeah, so that would be when I'm into secondary school, when I'm in Scarborough. So I've gone through primary school, gone up to secondary school. Um, yeah, and yeah, it's so interesting because I mean, after that point, I didn't have such a strong connection with an individual, such as I did when I lived in Oxford. Then suddenly I started becoming this sort of chameleon-like. I was a sort of a floater. I was able to ingratiate myself with all sorts of groups of people when I got to secondary school, and I would adapt and almost sort of change myself, maybe my behavior, my
Yeah.
demeanors, whatever, to fit in with
Yeah,
those
of course.
groups. Yeah, yeah,
I totally relate. I went to a majority minority high school and I did the same thing, man.
yeah,
That's
right. Yeah, yeah.
talk to me about your relationship to, not just acting, but just art in general. Were you on Napster? Were you downloading music? What kind of content were you consuming? Like what was your relationship to just like art in the broad spectrum?
Sure, yeah. So that's quite interesting. When I lived in Oxford, I had a friend called George, and we started a band when we were sort of 9, 10 years old. And
Nice. What was it called?
yeah, I can't remember what we were called actually. Um, it might come to me later. But
Someone
so
might
I
find
would
it in the
play.
comments.
Yeah, yeah. Who knows? Yeah, that
Yeah.
would be great. But I remember sort of rehearsing with him, and I'd been given this saxophone for Christmas, and I still play actually. I've had a hiatus from it, but I picked it up again recently. And he played guitar, and we were both into grunge. But I remember he introduced me to like Frank Zappa. Well, yeah. My dad also has this real eclectic taste in music. He's a professor of music,
Yeah.
electronic music. So we had a real mixed bag of stuff in the house anyway, and I loved listening to those CDs. And there's a few sort of anthemic tunes, if you like, that really, remind me of that time. My mum would put certain, like Annie Lennox would go on
Yeah.
if she was hoovering, for instance. So there's those sorts of things. But George introduced me to like Nirvana and the Offspring, the
Yeah.
punk band,
Love the
and
offspring.
yeah.
Yeah.
So quite a young age, I started getting into the sort of heavier side of stuff. And I remember I may have been like 12 or 13. I asked my granny for Christmas to buy me Kurt Cobain's journals,
No
and
way.
yeah,
That's awesome.
so
I had those as
yeah, so
well.
yeah, but I was like 13, so a lot of the stuff in there. I mean, I think the stuff that he was writing about, particularly some of the more intimate stuff, is very, very vivid in my memory.
It's very
And
brooding and angsty, which is kind of how you're feeling at 13, you know?
totally, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Um, so yeah, and then I got to Scarborough, and I started joining more bands. So we were in a few bands up there. The main one being Shallow Dreams, and we were like a grunge post-punk kind of
Wow.
outfit. Yeah,
So you
and
did
I
the
played
Killian
bass.
Murphy way. You went music first.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was always there. The acting. So I started dancing actually first.
Wow.
I did ballet.
Classically, no. How did that happen?
So I must have been like I used to dislocate my elbow all the time when I was a kid. And my mum went to a doctor and said, "What can you do to sort of strengthen the tendons and his joints? Because it keeps happening." Like my uncle would pick me up and swing me around, it would dislocate again, and we'd go back to hospital. And it must have happened like 6, 7 times. So my mum said to the doctor, like, "What can you do?" And they said, "Well, gymnastics and dance are like the best things for a growing person. And so I did. I started gymnastics, which didn't go down too well with me. I mean, all the girls, it was mainly girls, obviously, uh, doing it, they were like far advanced from where I was.
Yeah.
And the teacher reminded me of Tina Turner, actually, the gymnastics teacher. And she was just quite stern with me all the time. Anyway, so that didn't go down well, but I enjoyed dance. So I did ballet and tap. And that got me my first part, my first role, playing Bobbin the dog in Cinderella the pantomime.
Wow.
Yeah.
At the
So that was
school.
my first. No, so this would have been at the Oxford Playhouse. So it was like a
Oh,
legitimate pantomime. Yeah, yeah.
nice. Proper theater. Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, I played Bobbin the dog. And that was like the first show. So I sort of realized that perhaps is something that I would be interested in. And then I became this brooding, angsty teenager, like you said, and became less interested in it, perhaps because of the connotations. Also, I was bullied about it. I was
Yeah.
bullied a little bit about um, dance because I carried on doing ballet when I was in Scarborough. Um, yeah, people would take the piss. I didn't quite understand it, I guess. So I gave it up. And then until I was about 16 or 17, I just forgot about theatre as well completely.
Was there not much
Um,
in Scarborough of like, theater communities and playhouses and youth theater? Did that not exist as much as it did in
no, yeah,
Oxford?
no, it totally did.
Oh, okay, cool.
So there's a really brilliant, I think like country renowned sort of youth theatre called Rounders, and it's theatre in the Round. It's one of I think only two theatres in the Round existing in the country or something. The other one's in Stoke, funnily enough, and they're sister theatres. And yeah, so the Stephen Joseph Theatre, and I went back there when I was 15, 16, and Alan Ayckbourn gave me like a scholarship to watch him in rehearsals and also do this sort of episodic thing called Tiny Time Tales for kids every Saturday. So we'd rehearse on a Friday
Yeah.
and then put the show on Saturday morning for kids. So yeah, I mean, I started to become more interested in it again, more through community theatre, through things like developing workshops eventually and helping the staff out as well, with the younger kids. And yeah, so that, yeah, it's funny. I'm kind of losing my train of thought, but
Well, were your parents encouraging you of doing this and continuing the arts? I mean, I know, trust me, I know how tough teenagers can be on anything that's not cool. So like leaving dance behind and doing this like community theater thing, were they like, yeah, Billy, that's great. We want you to do that, or where were they
yeah,
at on towards the support system?
totally. Yeah. So my parents have always been incredibly supportive of any decision that I made, and I think teenage years, as you said, they're incredibly difficult and they are scarring, I think.
Yeah.
Uh, and I was a very, very troubled teenager, young man. And there was a moment I sort of got in with the wrong crowd, and it was sort of through the music route. I'd met people in bands, and the band and the gig um, scene in Scarborough at the time was quite big, actually, and we would play, you know, proper gigs at proper venues, most weeks, and I was pretty wayward at that point,
Wow.
and so there was like there was a danger that actually, and I kind of remember it quite vividly. I dropped out of college twice, so we're talking like 16, 17 here, and just I dropped out of college twice. My mum couldn't get me up ever in the morning to get to college,
Were you not doing
and I
theater at
just
this time? Just it was just regular, like college at this point, basic studies.
yeah, no. So I chose all pretty arts based subjects. I think music tech, drama, and English actually, English literature. So I was studying drama at college. Um, I was kind of done with the education system really.
Yeah.
Um,
I dropped out as
I
well,
was
man. I totally get it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a kind of the danger of having two parents who are teachers also. So in a way, like I remember my mum would come home and I just see through the teacher mode thing. Like I understood this voice that she was putting on, and so using that as evidence, I would go into school and sort of use it against the teachers because I knew
Yeah.
what it was about. I knew that it was sort of performative and yeah. So and I was frustrated basically. So there was a danger that I wasn't going to do anything. And then when I got to 18, my mum and dad, and I've confronted them about this recently actually. They just said, right, you know, look at drama schools. And I was encouraged by the youth theatre leader, a woman called Cheryl, and she said audition for drama school. And so I did, and I got this audition together.
For
And they
the
drove me down.
Lambda, Rada, like all the big ones.
Yeah, yeah. And I got a place at East 15 to do a foundation course, which is a year long. So my parents told me to get my stuff in the car. They did. They drove me down to Debden in East London, nearly Essex, and then dropped me off outside this house, put all my stuff on the pavement, and I was sat on it as they drove away. So we didn't even wait for the owner to. And
Wow,
so
what an experience, man.
I was 18, and I was quite a young 18,
Yeah.
even though I arrived at the school. They left me. Anyway, I confronted my mum and dad about it recently. They were like, "Well, it worked," you know.
Oh, that
So
was their plan. That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they're right, So I
Tough
can't.
love, man. We got to love our
That's
parents
right.
for it.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
when you got to this school, were you committed to acting at this point? Were you like, this is what I want to do? Or were you still just kind of like, I'm cool, let me give it a try, maybe ambivalent a little?
um, I, I don't know. I'm rarely ambivalent about very much actually, and
Oh, that's a great,
I'm
great way to be.
well, I think it's a bless. I think it's a blessing and a curse. It's like when I say ambivalent about very much, I mean anything that I'm involved in or doing. It's like I have to, even if I feel like I could be ambivalent about it, I've got to
Yeah.
like trick myself into thinking, you know what, this needs my attention, this needs my commitment, this needs my focus. Even if I think it's a pile of shit. Uh, and so yeah, so anyway, I turn up at this drama school. I don't really know what to expect. And the school is about sort of, the rudiments. So they're sort of teaching us this rudimentary stuff and, introducing new skills like yoga and a bit of movement and pretending to be animals and like
The
all
mime,
this stuff.
pantomime, commedia
Yeah, yeah,
dell'arte, all that good. Yeah,
yeah.
same. Yeah,
All the great stuff.
yeah,
Yeah. So all the stuff you go, when am I going to use this again?
yeah.
So yeah, but then we've also got these like text-based projects, and one of them is a verbatim piece called "Life After Life," and it's about life sentence serving prisoners, and we have to play these characters and do these speeches. Anyway, and I get given this one particularly heinous crime that this individual has committed
All
with a
true.
machine. All true, and it's all word for
Wow,
word, their words,
wow.
yeah. And he's holding a machete anyway, and we're putting on this piece, and my mind starts going to a very very dark place, as one would expect, but in such a vivid, with such alacrity and so vivid that I don't know what to make of it. I don't know how to compute this information that my brain is giving me, right? And there's this world that it's creating, this imagined circumstance, but it isn't imagined because I'm going, well, this is real. Someone did this, and I have to be this person. So I think quite naturally, my brain started being that person, but to such an extent that I scared myself. And I remember that quite vividly because it's really stuck with me,
Yeah.
and I suffered a lot during the course of that text project, and I didn't say anything to anyone, and it made me incredibly sensitive to the human condition and to what people are capable of and to the whys and the wherefores
Yeah.
of that. And so that's never gone away. And I remember that was a sort of formative thing, really. But it left me exhausted. It left me kind of feeling bereft almost. And I didn't know how to sort of get back to where I was. So in a way, it was sort of a loss of innocence for sure, as an individual. But it was also sort of the beginnings of something as an actor that so, these things that eventually would come to excite me rather than, I mean, I think I'm still fearful of them, but it excites me more so, and I'm
Yeah.
driven towards them, I think, now, rather than shying away from them. And so then I actually went back to Scarborough to sort of do a bit of a hard reset because I wasn't in a particularly good way after I finished there. And then about a year later, 2 years later, because I tried in the year after and didn't get in anywhere because I
For
think I was
the for
still
the roster of the regular drama schools.
exactly,
Yeah,
yeah. But
Lambda, Guildhall, all of them. Yeah.
that's right. I actually auditioned for East 15 again because you get a free audition if you do the foundation course.
Oh, wow, cool.
And the guy on the panel said to me, "You're too weird to come and do."
The audacity. Who the fuck says
I
that?
know. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That's what we want as actors. Weird is good, man. That's why we got into
Yeah.
this.
Well, apparently not, and apparently
Yeah.
not at East 15. But anyway, so I mean, I think the whole sort of deconstructing of the person and the reassembly of them during the course of a year or 3 years, I think I don't know, it's the whole thing's a bit of a misnomer, really. It's not necessary. So what I really wanted was some like a nurturing environment that was sort of interdisciplinary and felt collaborative and anyway, so I thought, well, okay, I'll go for the main conservatoires. I didn't get in the first year round. Then the second year I tried again. I'd been back in Scarborough doing workshops for kids with behavioural difficulties and hearing impairment, visual impairment, etc. And I sort of felt, yeah, okay. I've rekindled my love for this. I sort of know what it is I want to do. And so I did. I auditioned again, and I went to Bristol. And on the audition panel was a man named Chris Scott, and he was the head of acting at the time. And I said, I recognise you. And I said, Widow Twankey. And he was like, what do you mean? And he was Widow Twankey in the pantomime I'd done in Oxford when I was 7 or 8 years old.
No way.
When I played Bob in the Dog. Yeah.
Callback.
Yeah. So that was pretty wild. But I got into the school that year.
Which is one of the, Daniel Day-Lewis, Oded Fair, some of the finest actors in the world, you know? I mean, that's such a huge accomplishment, brother. I mean, is that where you this precision and would you say that school's where you found your voice as an actor?
Yeah. I mean, I think all the raw materials were always there. What I hadn't had, well, I sort of had, but not with the kind of expertise necessary to push me into the next part. And it's so interesting because I think a lot of what you learn at drama school is sort of unfortunate, but I think it is the right way. A lot of it's sort of through adversity, and it's a place where you've got to be able to make as many mistakes as you can, you know. And I think that is a sort of safe, trusting, creative environment, and that was certainly provided for us for the most part. You know, there were parts of it I really didn't get on board with, and parts of it I didn't understand why it was being taught to us even, and all of this stuff. So, you know, and someone kept saying to me, you know, it's about building your own toolkit so that you can then be sort of you can decide which parts of it you want to take and which parts you don't, and it will reveal itself eventually why it pertains to the work or why it's important. And I think that is true. You know, there's I still had a few, I guess, sort of personal problems. The beginning of the school, I was quite an intense guy.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I love it.
Yeah,
I'm sure you can tell by my intro monologue. Yeah.
I've never known anything different, you know. So it's like but there was a moment at the school, like I think a lot of the group found it a bit overbearing, and I remember having this meeting where we all sat down, and it was sort of made clear to me that I was being too intense. So I remember sort of going, okay, so I have to make an effort. I have to make an effort here to essentially conform, really, and that is what they were asking me to do. They didn't want me to be this sort of bouncing off the walls kind of intense guy, you know. They needed me to be a bit more normal. So I guess if anything, it sort of taught me normal a bit, which has come in handy actually. You know?
I'm sure. Yeah. And all in all, you know, because obviously get to the project. Would you say Guildhall was a good, you know, secondary foundational experience for you?
Bristol Old Vic.
I'm sorry, Bristol Old Vic. Yeah,
that's all right.
Yeah.
No worries, man.
Yeah.
But I would say, yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, it really has, you know, it refined my craft, and you know, there's certain things that I definitely do harken back to or try to sort of I think about again, you know, when I'm working. So yeah, it's sort of invaluable, really.
And was it nice to kind of be away from London, you know, like, because I imagine being in all those other schools, you know, you have the city right there, the West End, auditions are tempting, you know, like there you can focus on your education and you can still go there if you need to be. Was your mind when you were at drama school, let me get this education and I'll worry about auditions later? Or were you still trying to figure out your professional career early on as well?
That's quite an interesting question. I mean, in a way, there's no frame of reference for a person at the school in terms of like what the real world auditions in the real world are like. And there was a lot of talk of the real world, right? So it's I kind of straight away I was like, oh, we are definitely institutionalized here. There's this idea that this is a bubble of time, and this, it's a sort of physical bubble as well. And yes, eventually the gates will be opened, and off you'll go. And the idea, I think, of the 3 years is sort of this preparatory notion for, a state of readiness for the real world, but having no frame of reference really. You had these people come in, who had been actors, had been professional actors, and now were teaching, and so they would try their best to sort of give us a frame of reference.
Yeah.
But actually, nothing, I don't think, could prepare you for what it's actually like in a
No
way.
way. Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah, it really is. And so I think what's great is actually a lot of the adverse things that happened during my time at school, they did prepare me for the real world. So the rejection and the actually some of the more interpersonal social things that didn't go so well, that sort of prepared me for adult life as well, and the brutality of the industry in a way.
I love that, man. Thank you for sharing that. That means so much to me. And talk to me. You obviously you had a showcase, and I imagine you got rep, right?
Yes, not straight away actually.
Oh
The
wow.
showcase happened. Yeah, I think it's actually they made me sweat a bit. But my understanding, I was with my then agent. I've actually moved now, but yeah, he waited a week, I think. He told me a few years later the reason for that was his boss said to him, "If you don't sign that boy, you're gone." Basically, so there was
No.
this,
Well, that dude's a
yeah. So
yeah. Wow.
yes, so it's sort of an ultimatum, and apparently I was his first client as a solo
Yeah.
trader, as a solo agent. So yeah, and we were together for 7 years. I
And
think
that got
7
you
years.
Glue, which was the first thing that really kind of launched you into the UK stratosphere. Would you say, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think yeah, Glue was interesting. It's similar sort of ballpark to Skins, same
Yeah.
writer as Skins.
Love
Um,
Skins, classic.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it was. I mean, it definitely was
All
my
the
sort of
inks must
first.
have come back to use.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. And then talk to me, when you're there, I've talked to this with a lot of British actors, and there's so much, period piece drama, and there's so much amazing, stuff in the West End, and obviously having the credentials of the old Vic, I'm sure there was no shortage of theaters that wanted you. Where was your focus? Were I want to do film and TV, or were you really just open to working?
Yeah, it's funny because I think again it's about this expectation. When I was at school, at drama school, I think the presumption was that I would go straight into sort of classical theatre, because we'd done so much of that, like
Yeah.
speaking classical text, and it didn't happen. I mean, eventually I worked with Richard Eyre twice on two classical, well, they're essentially classical pieces, Eugene O'Neill and an Ibsen play. But that took a while for that to actually happen. So I think my expectation was I was going to go straight into theatre, and I've been quite fortunate. I've done nearly a play every 2 years or something.
Oh,
But I
that's
kind of,
amazing.
yeah, I hoped that it would be more than that in a way. I thought I really wanted to continue the education process, if you like,
Yeah.
because I think if anything, I learned so much more about my craft doing theatre in a way.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it's a totally different skill, isn't it? I mean, but I think to really find refinement and to experiment and to play with things, you have the luxury of this rehearsal process.
Yeah.
Also, my people skills, I find like I can really stretch them doing a play. So yeah, that was the idea, but then yeah, it didn't happen. I just TV, loads of TV, and then started doing films and.
And we got, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to skip over things. There's so much amazing
That's all
thing,
right.
but Dunkirk, a game-changing film with probably, top three best directors living in the world, and definitely one of all time. When
Yeah.
that came your way, I imagine, you probably have seen the Batman films and maybe some of the other Nolan's work, but was that like, just talk to me about that audition and getting that
Yeah.
project? Was that just
Yeah,
a
yeah.
wild time in your life?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's a bit of a blur, to be fair. Like, I mean, we were there. I was there for all of 1 week. You know, I only had a small part in the film, but
But
I do
everyone kind
remember.
of does. That's kind of why it works. You know,
That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's like 100 different characters in the film. You know?
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But yeah, I remember turning up and like I'd never experienced something as vast as that. You know, I think at that point I'd only been on fairly small sets really, and then suddenly there's like 400 supporting artists in a warehouse, and I'm I'm sort of led through them, and then I lose my way, and then a French sort of costume person starts dressing me in an army uniform, and so that I think I'm one of the soldiers, and so I don't really know what's going on, and then someone sort of pulls me away, and they're like, "Are you Billy Howle?" I was like, "Yeah," and they were like, "Why are you dressed in that uniform? You're in the navy. You're not you're not in the army." So
No way.
yeah. So it was kind of I was a bit rabbit in headlights really, in terms of, well, not so much at that point. I guess I've been working for a while, but in terms of the vastness of it, it was quite
Yeah.
like,
And no penny is spared on that set. I'm sure, just showing up must have been crazy.
yeah, no, absolutely, yeah,
That's amazing, man. And then, talk to me, obviously, like we said, there's a lot of characters on that, but I'm sure, then with your agent and your reps, that credit mixed with glue, gives you a lot of impetus in decisions. What was, like, I know you did, speaking of classical, you did the Seagull, what
yeah,
was it
yeah,
like doing something classical in a film? Was that really cool? Kind of using these
yeah,
tools
yeah,
that you learned, but then also using the film tools and making them amalgamize and to this really
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's really interesting. That was actually the first film, even though it came out much later. It was actually the first film I'd shot, I'd been in, and of course I was working with Sierra Chabon and
He
um,
worked with again.
with who I worked with
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that was like we were flown to New York. We had 28 days to shoot this, indie film in upstate New York. I first of all had never experienced heat like it because we were there in the middle of summer,
Ah, that's it
and
right
like,
now. I'm in New York.
yeah, yeah.
It's right out that window.
Yeah, it was just something else. And I remember seeing the Pride Parade, and we were being picked up on the block that the Pride Parade was going past. And I was just like, I mean, Pride is big, in London, but this is just
Yeah.
like
Oh, it's another
something else,
level.
man.
Yeah.
So so we were there in a car in a hot, sweaty leather cocoon, driving to upstate New York in
Yeah.
like 45-degree heat or something crazy. Um, so like, so yeah, but yeah, then we got there, and it was just like from beginning to end, this like really truly collaborative, quite cerebral process, where I was really allowed to discuss, the nitty gritty of Constantine
Yeah.
and what is going on in this play, and Annette Spenning actually came to see me in Ghosts, which we did at BAM in New York,
Oh, yeah. I
which
heard about
was,
that production. I wish I could have seen that, man.
yeah. So that's actually what got me the gig. She came to see me afterwards, and
Oh, Annette
um,
did. She was a champion of
yeah,
yours. That's awesome, man.
absolutely, yeah,
Glenn
really.
Fleshler is a really good friend of mine. He's done the
Oh,
show
is he? Yeah,
twice.
cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh, brilliant, nice one.
yeah,
Yeah, I've
yeah,
got a lot of time for Glenn. I think he's brilliant. Um, so yeah, and it was great. It's like that was a really empowering experience. In the sense that, like, really what I had to say and my thoughts were like really listened to, and they really wanted to know, and they really wanted to give me ownership of
yeah,
this role of this character. And so I think that for me was like, oh wow, okay, the same power I felt when I was bobbing the dog when I was sort of 7 or 8 years old, this power I had over the audience, that if I change the use of this prop, I can make them laugh
yeah.
or whatever. Then suddenly I'm sort of on this set and I'm like, oh wow, okay, this is the same. It's the same thing. I still have that power here. Um, so so yeah, I think that certainly like gave me a boost of confidence. I mean, I think I
And
went through a
you work with
phase.
so many icons, I mean, Brian. I
Yeah,
mean, too many to name, man. And that's so cool. And I actually went to the premiere of Tribeca, so it was so cool to get to experience that, man. I saw Peter Sarsgaard do it in 2008 with Kristen Scott Thomas. So I thought you were an incredible Constantine, man. It was so much. I mean, dude, you were. It was an epic work, man.
Thank
That's
you, man.
when,
Thank you.
yeah, and doing that, then talk to me about coming back. Like yeah, I'm at a loss for words because I'm just so devastated she's gone. But getting to work with Helen McRory, how was that
Mm.
experience?
Um, yeah, that really hit a nerve actually. I mean, I'm currently in
If it's
Bristol, and
if it's too raw, we can.
no, no, it's cool, it's cool.
Yeah,
I'm happy to talk about it. I'm always happy to talk about Helen. Uh, so I'm actually in
Mother,
Bristol at the
father,
moment.
son is the project. We
That's
should
right.
say. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, mother, father, son. I'm playing a stroke victim. He has a stroke in episode one, and then we sort of follow that. So I was quite sort of isolated, if you like. It was very much there was my story, and then there was everything else going on in the
Yeah.
story, and so it felt quite isolating. And uh, again, because I have this sort of penchant for darker roles and wanting to go to darker places, yeah, I guess it's a kind of masochistic kind of relishing the fact that I'm having to go to these darker places. And I did,
Yeah.
but it does take its toll. And I saw Helen, for the first time, and we had this scene across from a table, and that it's very difficult to describe. There's some actors who they give you sort of they relinquish, if you like, all of themselves, all of this control, and they sort of permit you to get to be inside their heads
Yeah.
fully. So it's just this sort of completely open access. There's no arrogance, there's no ego to it, and any ego there was, it was there for show to sort of
Yeah.
take the mickey, and I just learned a huge amount about my craft just from that day, if you like.
Wow.
And she gave me, sort of, permission to also be as open and as accessible, as an individual, and to stand my ground, and to, if that's how you want it to be, you make sure that that's how it is. So she was this real force, this real whirlwind
I'm a
force, and
mentor in some ways. It sounds like.
absolutely, yeah. And on top of that, she's playing my mother. So when I'm actually here working with another cast member from Mother Father Son at the moment, Pippa Bennett Warner.
Oh, wow.
And I was doing an interview actually for the Telegraph. And we were out in the sun, and I was just talking about Helen and Richard Gere and Mother Father Son, and then I got this call saying, Helen passed away this morning. And so for the rest of the day, we had to do this photo shoot, and so there was quite a lot of acting required for the
Yeah.
rest of that day. And I think, again, ironically, if you like, one of the things she really taught me was this, this resilience, this inner strength, this perseverance, this sort of calm within the storm, not before it, but actually within the melee. She was always this kind of figure of calm
Yeah.
and togetherness. And so yeah, I kind of held it together, but it's been a tough, weird time, and it's a huge loss to the industry here, and I think the industry
Yeah.
everywhere, to be honest.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm really sorry, brother, and I'm sending you healing vibes to you
Thank
and
you, man.
and to Damien, and man, you were incredible in that. And before we jump into the Serpent and the Beast Must Die, we got to talk about it because the fans will, obviously yell at me if I don't. Doing Star Wars, dude. How was that
Yeah, yeah.
experience?
Yeah, you know what? It was an absolute blast. It was one day of filming,
Were you
and it was the
scared to take
final.
on something like that because it's just so big, and it's so global, and like doing that, I can imagine, going back to what we were saying about ambivalence, like that, even though you said it's like a smaller role, whatever, it's just like Star Wars and like Harry Potter are like the biggest things in the
Yeah,
world.
yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, I sort of take things in my stride. Like I said to you before, I'm never ambivalent. And I love Star Wars. I always have. grew up watching the films, and I wouldn't say I'm like I don't have all the books and like know all
Yeah,
the
me.
character
Yeah,
names, but
yeah.
I love the movies, and and yeah, it was a lot of pressure in the sense that I knew the import of this role, who he was, in terms of the rest of the story and what that actually means for the rest of the story, the mechanics of it. So I sort of did feel a pressure there. I was in very safe hands because of JJ. I knew how brilliant he was,
And
and
you probably had to keep a secret, like Mission Impossible style, for like a year, right? You couldn't tell anyone.
yeah, it was a bit like that,
Yeah.
and then of course I had Jodie Comer, so she was. We were both sort of a bit like, whoa, this is again. It was like a set I'd never seen before. It was like something else, and all these sort of animatronic like aliens and monsters and stuff, and people on lines flying across the,
Yeah.
it was pretty incredible.
Pinewood Studios in London. I mean, the best in the world, man. It doesn't,
That's right. Yeah.
yeah, that's so cool. And was that fun? Did you have a good time?
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. I mean, the one thing that made it strange was it was their last ever day of filming for 7 years. This
That's kind of
whole group of
bleak.
people.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So it was a weird like dichotomy. Like everyone was hugging and about to say goodbye, and we were just saying hello. So it was
Yeah.
an odd timing, but
Wow.
still enjoyable.
And then, dude, well, first, how did it come your way, The Serpent? Was that an audition? Was that an offer? Like,
Um, I got a yeah no it was an audition. Robert Stern, who was casting, who did work with Nina Gold, said to me, "Are you free tomorrow? We need we need to fly out to Thailand in 2 weeks, and we need to cast this role." So and he's Dutch, and I was like, oh, I can't really do a Dutch accent. I don't know about this. And so anyway, I had a day
your Dutch
to
accent in that show is incredible. The fact that you just said that, I was like, you must have had like Dutch family members. Go on. Sorry.
yeah no
Yeah.
we have a close friend of the family who is Dutch, but yeah, I don't know. It was a tough ask. I had 24 hours to prep like 12 sides of A4 for this audition. And I didn't really know the story or anything about it.
Yeah.
So anyway, just used those 24 hours to the best of my ability, and then went in the next day and did this audition. And then another 24 hours later, I found out I got this role, and I was flying out to Thailand in about 2 weeks' time. So it's
Did you call a
just,
dialect coach? What'd you do?
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
straight away I was going, guys, I really need to brush up on my Dutch here. So the beginning of that journey was quite, as it often is with me. I mean, it's like quite stressful. The social aspect of getting to know new people,
Yeah.
maybe even living somewhere new. So in this case, the other side of the world for 4 months. So yeah, it was a lot, and it's the furthest and longest, or no, not longest, but the furthest from home I think I'd been or filmed. For a long duration. And then again the heat. So even though New York was hot when we did the Seagull, like this was another level.
Tropic hot, man. Different kind,
Yeah, just a whole other thing. And so just unbearable for me. I don't deal with heat very well anyway. And then I found out that it was, of course I knew it was set in the 70s, but found out I would just be wearing like polyester and viscose.
Oh god! They must have had
for
a
the
fan
trip.
behind you the whole time, spraying you down.
It was just mental. Let's just dress them all in non-breathable fabrics. So
yeah. Well, the character's constantly in distress, so it works. The sweat,
I wasn't acting. I was just hot. Yeah.
No, man, you were Daniel Day-Lewis. You were using it. You were method, bro. That's awesome, man. Was that a fun? I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know the story, so it's just so unbelievable. But you as that, and you and Ellie, man, you guys have conversations in Dutch. Like you made it look easy. Like how did you do
thanks,
that?
man. Yeah, I, to be honest with you, I don't know is the answer. I mean, at the time I was working very much from a place of stress, almost to an unhealthy level, and I've sort of changed that since, or I'm starting to, to like find a more holistic, more tenable method of like working towards a character. But I do tend to like work from a place of stress, and it's really full on. And the stakes for me as an individual, as a person, are very high. I'm like, if I get this wrong, it's the end of the world kind of
Yeah.
thing. So that's
You're an
the
artist. We're
amount of
tough on ourselves, dude. You
yeah,
know? Yeah.
yeah, man.
Yeah.
So that's the amount of pressure I put on myself. But then when I started to relax and started to, I call it, the effort factor. I don't I don't mither myself quite so much. And then I start to enjoy myself. So yeah, and we did. We had a whale of a time
Yeah.
in Thailand for those 4 months.
And then for all that suffering, what's it like now to see the world, just enjoy it so much? Has it all been worth it?
Uh, yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I,
absolutely.
I see a Golden Globe and an Emmy coming your way, brother. I'm calling it
Oh
here.
man,
If I was a
who
betting
knows?
man,
Yeah.
it's going on you, dude. You did incredible work, man. But
Thank you, man.
obviously you're gonna have to come back sometime, because I could talk to you for hours. But let's jump into the Beast Must Die. Talk to
For sure,
me.
yeah.
This is based on a novel. Did you know about the book? It's with Jared
No,
Harris.
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
Jared. So
yeah,
Jared Harris, Cush Jumbo, myself, Geraldine James, Mia Tomlinson, Barney Sabin, who's a new actor. Yeah, so like Dome Karakowski is directing for BritBox, and yeah, like um, the Beast was I played Nigel Strangeways. So it's a set of detective novels written by Cecil Day Lewis. His nom de plume, which I can't remember again all the time, forgetting his pen name.
yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, it's a series of novels. I hadn't come across them. It's not the kind of thing that you would find on my bedside table or that I would choose to read. But anyway, so I did, and it's very different. I mean, obviously,
Yeah,
it's kind of
super
been
different.
pushed into the modern day and all that stuff. But yeah, the sort of the normal avenues, and I got the job actually before the first lockdown in England, and then it didn't happen for like quite a long time after that.
Wow.
So I sort of was just sitting on it for a long time and had the scripts and did a lot of work when I was, at home. But there's only so much work I can actually do sat at a desk.
Yeah.
I'm quite instinctive and I'm very much informed by like environment and other cast members and all of that stuff. So uh, yeah, there was a lot of anticipation, and then tentatively, we went over to the Isle of Wight and shot
Yeah,
it.
cool. Yeah, so cool, man. So when is this project coming out?
July the 5th on AMC.
Awesome. I
Uh,
love it. Mad Men, great network. That's killer.
yeah, really cool.
And working with Jared Harris, and then you said you had to take a break, and then you shot it when the pandemic got a little bit better.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it's quite tentative at first, and I think we were all quite worried, with all these COVID protocols that it was going to be shut down, or we'd have to go back to the mainland or whatever. But we were really fortunate. There was only a couple of like hiccups where
And you
people
shot
had
it on the
positive tests.
Isle of Wight, where it takes place, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
How was that experience? I've never been.
Yeah, cool, man. I mean,
Yeah.
it is like a tiny island. Like, it's a small island off the south coast of the mainland, and it's. I mean, it is like quite provincial. Like everyone knows everyone's business. You get a lot of tourism, but there's a real separation, and the locals. It's very much their place, and not that it's not welcoming. It's a very
Yeah.
very accommodating place to be, and sort of bleakly beautiful.
And do you think
Um,
that time that you had in the pandemic to sit with this character, do you think it really helped the work? Do you think in some ways it maybe made you in your head a bit much? Like I don't know. I'm imagining how I would do it. It's so
yeah,
tough to sit with something for that long, and also to not
yeah, for
know when
sure.
you're going to get to do it.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the anticipation was killing me. So eventually, I just sort of put the script away and didn't even think about it because there was also this notion that it might just never get made.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
we didn't
yeah.
even know what the severity of the COVID situation would be in a year's time, and so yeah, so I sort of just put it away. And then it was about 2 weeks before we were due to start filming. So yeah, so that was like a major shift. And it also was a major shift in terms of my approach and like the way I thought and felt about work. And what I realized was this sort of place of stress that I've been working from. I was sort of like I felt like I was cutting my nose off actually, in a way, and anyway, so I arrive on the island, and I was like, okay, for the first time in a long, long time, I feel like I've got to get to know myself because I've stopped drinking, and I've got to like play this
Yeah.
other person at the same time, right? So,
It's
so it was like,
two births happening
yeah,
simultaneously.
yeah, that's right, yeah, yeah. So, so I was like, yeah, getting to know two people at once, and that was intense. It was an intense period, but it kind of helped, as you said before, like whether it's a method or whatever. I often find, like, in an uncanny manner, that actually the things that are happening in my life, like, really are just like the story, or that come from the story, or derived from the story somehow, or vice versa. That
Yeah.
actually whatever's happening in my life, starts to inform what it is that I'm doing. And, so I don't make a distinction really, and I know a lot of people say it's unhealthy or whatever, but I feel like you don't choose to be an artist. That it sort of is put upon you in a way,
Yeah, totally.
and then you guys just spend the rest of my life trying to make sense of it. So there's a bit of that going on shooting the
Well,
show.
it's incredible work. I got to see a few episodes. I can't wait to see the rest of it, man. And
Thanks, man.
before we wrap up, you got Infinite Storm coming out. When is that coming? Do you know?
I don't know exactly, but I'd imagine I imagine autumn. I'm gonna
Okay,
guess.
cool. And then you just started Chloe. How's that going?
It's going really well. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's yeah, really good.
I really appreciate you being here on your day off, man. It means so much to me. It's been
My pleasure, man. Yeah.
so incredible talking to you. I please come back anytime, brother. I could do this for hours. Just I love the way your brain works, man, and I identify with a lot he said. But few final questions, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure.
Um, you know, we kind of just hit on it a little bit, but if you don't mind expanding on it, it's been a really tough time for the world and for actors and for humans in general, just kind of living in our heads and being locked in our home. And, knock on wood now where things are opening up a bit, but it's been tough to stay sane and to be an artist and to be a human. What's kept you inspired?
Um, the the thing that have inspired me, and it often is the case, is the resilience of like the human spirit. This idea that at some point again we will congregate. That at some point again we will meet, and that there will be some form of ritual that we will enact, such as going to the theatre.
Yeah.
And when that's missing, I think like there's a real sort of deficit, in the mind, in the spirit, in the soul, in the body, what that deficit creates is a hunger, and that hunger itself is inspiration. That is what drives us to create more stuff, to create.
Yeah.
And I think if anything has taught me, is how creative so many people actually are. And a lot of people who don't realize that they are as creative as they are have started to realize that during this period of time. And I think that's a brilliant lesson.
That's so beautiful. I appreciate you sharing that. And going back to the young Billy who, felt kind of lost at times and got dark and then did the drum school and did get in the first time. For all those actors out there that are struggling, I know this is a really tough question, but any words of wisdom you would have for them?
Yeah. I mean, I've only just started to understand what this really means. People say take care of yourself, be kind to yourself, and that what that really means is, to not recriminate yourself for rejection, to be patient with yourself, to take the time it takes, and time really is our only currency, and it's a baffling thing. It's very difficult for us to really understand, but there is plenty of it. Don't rush, and don't rush to please other people, because what we do isn't about pleasing other people, not fundamentally even.
Yeah,
Um,
that's beautiful. Man, I'm so grateful for your time and your work. And, I'm telling you here first, man, that nominations, plural, are coming your way. And the work you're doing is incredible, man. And you're a real force to be reckoned with. And you got so many amazing things ahead of you. And I'm so excited to see them all. And I'm Team Billy all the way, man. And please come back sometime and let's do this
sure.
again and grab coffee one of these days when the world's back to whatever degree of normalcy we hopefully get to soon.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Awesome,
Cool, man.
brother. I got so much love for you. Good luck on Chloe, man. All right.
You too, man.